The crowd roared, a soundless vibration in the vacuum of space, translated into artificial bass and pulsing lights for the viewers gathered in the arena towers. Inside the glass dome of Raction 5's infamous Pit of Grudge, the sand shimmered under spectral floodlamps. Advertisements blared in half a dozen alien dialects, glowing banners for exotic poisons, black market limbs, and shady mercenary schools. Spectators gorged on wriggling snacks while drone cams swooped in on the center of the ring. "Contestants," boomed a voice, part synthesized, part biologically grown. "Let the dance of resolve commence." Steel gates hissed open at opposite ends of the arena. From the left tunnel, the war hero emerged. Karthtal of the Arthok Dominion towered at nearly 8 feet, muscle-bound, scaled, his arms the size of siege pillars. Armor etched with scars clanked across his torso, and ceremonial tusks curved from his jawline like ivory scimitars. He brandished a plasma glaive that pulsed with electric malice. The crowd thundered their approval. From the right gate, silence. She stepped out alone. No weapons. No armor. Just bare feet on the grit and a linen shift dusted in moon sand. Her hair, loosely braided, fell over one shoulder like it forgot how to care. She blinked up at the stands, tilted her head, and offered a sunny wave. "Hi," she said to no one in particular. The crowd laughed. So did Karthtal. A low-rank grunt watching from a command booth leaned over and muttered to his superior, "That can't be right. She's not even shackled." "She's not dangerous," the officer replied, adjusting a control screen. "Probably a bureaucratic slip. Just a human civilian tossed into the pit by some pirate lord. Happens all the time." On the field, Callum Monroe gave a slow exhale, surveying the arena like someone checking out a hotel room that didn't match the pictures. Karthtal banged his glaive against the sand, snarling in his native tongue. "Do you stand there to beg mercy, or merely because your legs have betrayed you, fleshling?" Calla squinted, looking at him like he was a crossword clue that didn't quite add up. "I mean, mostly just trying to figure out which end of that staff isn't going to shock me when I take it from you." A ripple of laughter swept through the crowd again, delighted, mocking, entertained. Karthtal didn't laugh. His eyes narrowed. Something in her tone, it lacked the usual panic. No adrenaline sweat, no shaking knees. She was standing too still. "Begin," the announcer's voice thundered. Karthtal lunged like a collapsing star. She wasn't there. His blade carved air, striking sand and spitting out heat. A beat later, his head snapped left. She was walking, not running, walking a few paces away, humming something soft and rhythmic. Was that Earth music? He charged again. This time faster. She twisted slightly and stepped just far enough that the glaive skimmed past her hip. Then she turned and gave him a polite nod, as if applauding a decent effort. "I'd rate that swing, maybe a 6, she offered. "Solid speed, no control. You lead with your shoulders. It's telegraphed." He roared and spun, blade whistling. She ducked. The crowd gasped, then leaned in. Karthtal's movements slowed, not from fatigue, but from dawning confusion. She wasn't fighting. She was dismantling him. One feint at a time. She hadn't even touched him. He backed away half a step. "Oh good," she said, voice chipper. "Now you're listening." Then she moved. She didn't leap or punch. She just stepped in. One foot, then another, sliding into his personal space like gravity bent wrong. Her fingers flicked at his elbow, barely a tap, but his glaive arm spasmed. Dropped the weapon. She caught it, spun it, handed it back. "Here. Thought you might want a do-over." He stared at her. She smiled. It wasn't warm. It was surgical. From the stands, a pair of reptilian commentators began stammering in overlapping tongues. Primitive human behavioral. Unexpected neuromuscular precision. Is this pre-programmed reflex? The camera drones zoomed in on her face. There was no war paint. No tactical HUD. No cybernetic implants. Just a woman who looked like she might ask for a glass of iced tea and a porch swing. Karthtal was no fool. He took 3 steps back and lowered his center of gravity, tail lashing. "What are you?" "Human," she said. "Same as always." He growled. "You're playing." "Not at all. Just stretching." He grabbed his glaive again and launched himself like a missile. She let him. At the last instant, she turned into his strike, caught the shaft of the weapon under one arm, pivoted, and slammed the butt of the handle into the join where his neck met shoulder. He dropped. Not out cold, but his vision whited out, his motor control vanished, and he hit the ground like a marionette with its strings snipped. He twitched. She crouched beside him, calmly, like they were about to have a very serious chat. "You know," she said conversationally, "your anatomy is fascinating. Redundant nerve clusters. Backup organ systems. Takes a lot to drop you." Karthtal hissed, eyes unfocused. "You cheat." She sighed. "You think tactics are cheating?" He couldn't move. She leaned in. "I'm going to tell you a secret," she whispered, and suddenly her voice carried, projected, picked up by a hidden mic, piped into every speaker across the arena and beyond. "We're not strong. Not really. Not fast either. And most of us are, well, not like me. Most are kind, confused, fragile things. But do you know what makes us different? Silence. They sent you here with orders, didn't they? Kill the human. Show dominance. Make the crowd cheer. What you don't realize is, I volunteered." A silence hung over the arena like breath before a scream. "I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me." One of the audience booths exploded with cheering. Others fell into panicked murmurs. The broadcast delay caught up. Commentary lines scrambled to shift tone. Suddenly the human wasn't a victim. She was a variable. In the observation bay above, a cluster of mercenary captains were watching. One of them, a slithering Lamric trader with too many eyes and a fondness for betting on underdogs, leaned forward. "That's not an ordinary civilian," he muttered. "No," another said, voice grim. "That's one of them." "What? One of who?" "Ghosts. The Terran fleet's dirty leftovers. Thought they were myths. Looks like the myth just broke a war hero's arm." Back in the pit, Kala rose. Karthtal wheezed. "You could have killed me," he growled. She nodded. "Yes." "Why didn't you?" She cocked her head. "Because you're not the real enemy. You're just the loudest." He blinked at her, dazed. "And because," she added, wiping her hands on the front of her dress, "I wanted the crowd to see you try your hardest and fail anyway. It's more educational." Then she looked up, eyes locking with the nearest drone cam. She smiled again, not unkindly. "You can send the next one in now." But no gate opened. The arena stayed deathly still. Somewhere, someone was flipping switches, scanning data. Somewhere else, a governor was yelling into a comlink, demanding to know how a human ended up flipping a Dominion gladiator like a flapjack. Kala just waited. She turned slowly in a circle, arms out slightly, inviting. "Anyone?" she called cheerfully. "No, just him today." From the sand below her, Karthtal tried to rise. She didn't even look down. "I wouldn't, sweetie. You'll just embarrass yourself twice." He stayed down. A whisper caught on the wind. Was it just the audience's breath, or something else? Maybe it was the silence of assumption dying. The assumption that humans were prey. The assumption that smiles meant safety. The assumption that one woman in a plain dress couldn't unmake an entire species' ego with a raised eyebrow and a borrowed weapon. From her belt, Kala pulled a simple silver ring and slipped it on. She hummed again. Softly. Sweetly. "Sweet Caroline. B-A-B-A-B-A." No one joined in. She walked to the edge of the arena, placed her hands behind her back, and waited. And somewhere, watching from deep space, aboard a black ship with no known ID tag, a signal blinked green. "Stage 1. Confirmed. Calla Monroe looked up once more at the stars above the dome. And smiled. The arena was silent long after Calla left. The sand, still holding the imprint of her bare feet and the fallen form of Carthtal, seemed untouched by the chaos it had just witnessed. In the viewing towers above, alien dignitaries, warlords, syndicate bosses, and curious spectators whispered to one another in low, urgent tones. A million different words, but all meaning the same thing. What just happened? Carthtal had not returned to his barracks. He was escorted to a medical unit with all the dignity of a collapsed shrine. Not because he was wounded, his body had recovered before the medics could even apply nanogel, but because his pride had shattered so completely he could not hold his head up. The Dominion had never seen him falter in combat. Now they watched footage of him being outmaneuvered by a woman who never raised her voice. She must have been augmented, one of the analysts barked in the command chamber. Some kind of stealth cybernetic system. She's a walking mimic weapon. She doesn't even have a neural jack, another countered, rewinding the footage for the third time. No implants. No chemical triggers. Heart rate remained within 90 beats per minute the entire time. 90? A third voice asked, disbelieving. Yes. Come. Centered. Like she was sipping tea. From across the chamber, an older intelligence officer, pale-scaled and quiet, exhaled a slow breath and tapped a claw against the monitor. I warned you about them, he said. You laughed. You said they were extinct. I said they were hiding. In a remote feed room deep beneath the arena, a technician stared at her screen, transfixed. She had replayed Calla's final movement sequence. A subtle twirl of her left foot, a sweep of her hand, the pattern etched into the sand like choreography. It wasn't random. She'd seen this kind of data before, years ago, back when she was assigned to cyber defense on the Hellion front. Encrypted motion codes, buried in physical gestures. Ma'am, she whispered into her headset, I think she was transmitting something. The voice on the other end went quiet. Transmitting what? I don't know. But the arena cameras picked it up. Every station connected to the broadcast just ran it. To where? She hesitated. To everywhere. In a dive bar orbiting Harkos 9, 5 mercenaries paused mid-drink as the screen above them looped the match. One of them, a grizzled ex-Loxery with cybernetic eyes and a tattoo of a Terran skull on his neck, spat out his ale. Nope, he said. The others turned. What is it, Mon? That's her, he said, standing up slowly. That's the librarian. The what? They called her Calla, but back during the Orion retreat, she was codenamed Librarian. Stored combat protocols in her head like bedtime stories. Never fought unless necessary. When she did, he trailed off, eyes haunted. But she's human. She's more than that. She's what happens when humans decide to act like the rest of us. In the private quarters of the Aarthok command vessel, General Trekval stared at the image of Calla paused mid-turn, dust swirling around her like a halo. You let this enter our court, he growled at the trembling officer before him. We thought she was a trader's concubine, sir. Caught smuggling between systems. No military record. Because humans don't record everything, Trekval snapped. They let you think they're dull until they have a knife in your back. He crushed a data tablet in one fist. They'll be coming. This was the opening bell. The officer flinched. Should we order orbital suppression? No. No fire. Not yet. Trekval's eyes narrowed. I want to know what she's doing here. Who she's working with. And why she chose this place. Down in the arena's sublevels, Calla sat alone in a holding room. No restraints. Just a long bench, a water dispenser, and a mirrored wall she politely ignored. Her feet were dusty. Her hands folded. Her expression tranquil. The guards hadn't entered. They just watched. One whispered to another, She looks like she's waiting for a bus. She is the bus, the other replied grimly. Eventually, the door hissed open. A diplomat slithered in, a tall Viscari with layered robes and a body shaped like overlapping tree bark. He bowed in the formal way of his species, lips twitching with calculated humility. "Miss Monroe," he said, "we hope the accommodations are acceptable?" She looked up with that same polite smile. "Oh, they're fine. Though the lighting's a bit harsh for my complexion." The diplomat did not know how to respond. He sat across from her, awkwardly, folding multiple limbs. "We're reviewing the match. There is concern." "I understand," she said, voice calm. "He came to kill me. I didn't let him. That's not the concern." He cleared his throat. "You displayed knowledge beyond that of an ordinary civilian. Your tactics suggest military origin. Your demeanor suggests confidence. Confidence is a symptom now?" He shifted uncomfortably. "You understand this arena is not a battlefield. It is sport. Political demonstration. Display." She leaned forward slightly, hands still folded. "You turned combat into spectacle and are surprised when the script breaks." He winced. "The audience may misunderstand." She nodded. "Yes. They might begin asking why humans, previously mocked for their fragility, are suddenly taking down elite soldiers with open hands." The diplomat said nothing. She tilted her head. "Have you ever studied Terran nature documentaries?" He blinked. "We're from a planet where everything wanted to kill us. Weather, animals, each other. We weren't the fastest or the strongest. So we adapted. We learned to lie to the environment. To pretend to be safe. Cute. Unarmed." Her voice dropped. "It's our camouflage." The diplomat's throat clicked. "But you're not camouflaged now. Only because someone asked the wrong question." Behind the mirrored wall, a full team of analysts, officers, and security minds watched and recorded. One of them turned to his superior. "She's not trying to escape." "No," the other replied. "She's preparing." "Preparing for what?" "For us to make the next move." Later that night, when the arena had been scrubbed and the last of the audience transported back to their orbital cruise ships, a storm swept in. Lightning flickered against the dome, and technicians monitored radiation levels to ensure the shield held. In her cell, Kala sat in lotus position, breathing, centered, and then the lights dimmed. Not flickered, dimmed, systematically, deliberately. Someone knocked, not on the door, on the wall. 3 slow taps. She rose, stretched like someone stepping off a red-eye flight, and walked to the corner of the room. "Are you late, or am I early?" she asked aloud. The wall shimmered. A field phased open, revealing a figure in shadow. Human, tall, dressed in black armor with no insignia. "Signals clean," the figure said. "Full spread delivered. Every listening post pinged." She nodded. "Good. Next phase. Fleets mobilizing. Quietly. 6 systems already soft. They're still watching reruns of your fight." She gave a little laugh. "They always did love a good underdog." The figure hesitated. "You sure you want to stay here?" "Yes," she said simply. "They're curious now. I want them fascinated." Fascination leads to questions. Questions lead to answers. And answers lead to chaos. Exactly. The figure tapped something on their gauntlet. The wall shimmered back into place. She returned to her bench. And waited. In a chamber aboard the Galactic Assembly's central station, dignitaries gathered. A clip of Kala's fight played again. Slow motion. Analysts from at least 9 species argued over her footwork, over the significance of her non-lethal blows, over her body language. "She walked toward the Arthok," one muttered. "She handed him his own weapon," said another. "It's symbolic. Psychological warfare. It's proof." A Mondu scholar, ancient and blind, spoke quietly. "They're waking up again. Just like before, when they sent that man with the smile and the burning city behind him. You think this is war?" "No," the Mondu replied. "Worse. This is the moment before war, when the humans ask if you're sure you want to test them. In his recovery chamber, Karthtal sat upright. He was silent. The medics had finished tending his bruises, but he hadn't spoken a word. Until now. "I want to see her," he said. "You can't," the orderly replied. "She's under review." "Not to fight. To ask." "Ask what?" He turned, his voice low. "Why she didn't kill me." The orderly paled and left. But Karthtal didn't stop staring at the door. Because deep down, in the places warriors rarely speak of, something had settled in his bones. Not fear. Not shame. Respect. No. Reverence. And something worse. Curiosity. In the surveillance lab, the technician replayed the footage again. There it was. The twirl. The hand. The code. She ran it through decryption algorithms. Just in case. Lines of alien script unfurled. Then Terran. Then a phrase. Phase 1. The trap is set. Smile when the jaws close. The technician swallowed hard. She backed up the clip. Rewatched the moment Kala smiled into the camera. It wasn't sweet. It was surgical. Engineered. Delivered. And then the feed cut to static. Aboard the Vraxian High Command deck, silence had turned from awkward to dangerous. The diplomatic chamber, usually humming with casual scheming and theatrical threats, felt suffocating. Dozens of alien officers sat around a vast circular table, screens flickering, eyes locked on looping footage of a single human woman. The same scene, again and again. That disarming twirl. The offhand smile. The whispered phrase in a language no translation corps had fully parsed. "It's not just a message," one intelligence coordinator muttered, gripping a stylus tightly enough to bend it. "It's a trigger." "Explain," hissed a Zentari diplomat, spindly and translucent, his irritation making his carapace pulse with a pale blue glow. "The signal piggybacked off our broadcast grid, carried in the motion telemetry of the arena match. Every system that mirrored the fight, every drone, every relay node, every viewing station, downloaded a fragment of something." A war minister leaned forward. "A virus?" "Not exactly. It doesn't disable. It listens." "For what?" "For us." Across the chamber, General Trekval tapped his claws against the steel armrest of his command chair. "And how," he said slowly, each word sharp, "did a lone human gladiator deploy a cross-galactic surveillance network using nothing but sand and a smile?" "She didn't act alone," a new voice said from the doorway. All heads turned. The Mondu observer, draped in ceremonial silence robes, floated in. Blind, ancient, and unreadable. His eyes were gone, replaced with lattice thread sensors that glowed faintly with every vibration. "You still cling to the illusion of human weakness," he said, moving forward without sound. "You watch their art, their films, their bumbling diplomats, and you see chaos, clumsiness, emotion." He paused at the center of the room. "But the mistake is assuming they don't know what they're doing." A technician leaned closer to his screen. "The signal. It didn't just spread. It activated something in our own networks. It synced with our data cores. Like it had a map." "Because it did," the Mondu whispered. The chamber fell silent again, this time with the cold finality of comprehension dawning. In a classified bunker beneath Vraxian's central spire, Kala sat at a sleek black table surrounded by 6 armed guards and 2 analysts who had taken great pains to look calm and unarmed. The room was windowless, thick-walled, and dim. Kala had been given a single glass of water and an offer of tea, which she politely declined. She hadn't touched the water either. "So," said one of the analysts, a Plintari with a nervous tick in his left eye, Ms. Monroe. "Let's begin with some basic identification questions." "Of course," she replied gently, folding her hands in front of her. "Species. Human. Origin planet. Earth. Third rock from a temperamental star. Occupation." She smiled. "That depends. Currently, spectacle. Previously, analyst." Strategist. Emergency librarian. Librarian. Metaphorical title, she said, as if explaining a board game to a child. I specialize in cataloging people's blind spots and writing endings to problems they don't know they have. The analyst shifted uncomfortably. You were captured by Dominion raiders 2 months ago. You offered no resistance. Why would I? They expected a prisoner. I gave them one. But why enter the arena? I wanted to be seen. The second analyst, quiet until now, leaned forward. Her voice was colder, clipped. Who do you work for? Technically, no one. But you could say I have loyalties. To the Terran military? That doesn't exist anymore. Exactly, said the analyst. You shouldn't exist. Kala's expression didn't change. Then perhaps I'm a hallucination. Convenient, isn't it? The analyst stiffened. We know about the motion code. The data injection. You infected our networks. Infected. Kala tilted her head. You make it sound malicious. I shared something. The first analyst rubbed his temples. What did you share? A warning, she said softly. The silence that followed was heavy. Up above, on the surface of Raction, ships began to flicker in and out of the upper atmosphere. Sleek, black-hulled vessels with no visible insignia. Their shapes were Terran, but subtly different, adapted, smoothed. Built for silence, not war. In the dark, they moved like predators through a school of sleeping fish. At the central command station, Admiral Yeshvar stared at the growing list of unknown IFF tags blinking across the board. These ships, he murmured, they shouldn't exist. They don't, his second-in-command said. They were wiped out a decade ago, after the Accord. Then who's flying them? No one knows. He stared harder, but Kala knew. In the interrogation chamber, she sipped from the water at last. Just a small sip. Enough to wet her lips. The Dominion thought they ended us. Your war machines recorded the whole thing. Cities burning, ships cracking open like eggshells, a final Terran broadcast of surrender. Dramatic, wasn't it? Neither analyst responded. Here's the truth, she said, leaning slightly forward. We orchestrated that surrender. The female analyst scoffed. You faked losing a war? We didn't fake losing. We lost deliberately. To see what you'd do next. The male analyst blinked. That's impossible. That would mean you've been watching all of us. Quietly. 4 years. She nodded. And listening. And learning. You like to think we're emotional, chaotic, unpredictable. And we are. But that's not all we are. She stood, slowly, unthreateningly. The guards stiffened. We're the only species that writes tragedies for fun. That builds monuments to failure. That creates weapons and then buries them for our grandchildren to fear. You don't understand humans because you're still asking the wrong question. The male analyst swallowed. And what's the right question? Kala smiled. Why did we come back? Above them, the black ships began transmitting. Not weapons. Not demands. Recordings. Snippets of intercepted calls, private council meetings, resource theft, genocide cover-ups, broken treaties. All timed. All verified. The great empires of the Quadrant, the Dominion, the Zentari Accord, the Veskari chain, each had its secrets laid bare in perfect clarity. The data didn't attack. It exposed. By the end of the hour, 17 separate riots had erupted across 5 planets. Back in the chamber, the analysts were gone. Kala stood now in front of a council of emergency defense leaders, hastily summoned and very, very angry. You've destabilized half the quadrant, one spat. No, she replied. I just pulled back the curtain. You did the destabilizing. I gave your victims a platform. This is war. She shook her head. This is restitution. Rebalancing. We'll retaliate. She took a step closer. "And you'll lose. Not because we're stronger. We're not. But because you won't understand the battlefield until it's already over." One of the commanders, a sleek-furred Avex with a voice like falling gravel, growled, "What do you want, human?" Kala's smile faded. Finally, something colder replaced it. "We want the galactic stage back. Not to rule. To remind you what happens when you think extinction is victory." Silence. Then the comms officer at the wall turned pale green. "We have a priority broadcast from the Outer Rim. Sector Yuma 13 just went dark." Another screen blinked on. A Terran face appeared, older, bearded, gentle-eyed. "Hello, friends," he said calmly. "You don't know me, but I know you. I'm here to talk about second chances." The commanders leaned forward. He continued, "We are the survivors of a species that builds legends from ashes. You tried to erase us. We took notes. And now, we're rewriting the ending." The screen cut out. Kala turned. And for the first time since she'd entered Vraxion's walls, her posture changed. Shoulders squared. Chin high. Not hiding anymore. The guards didn't stop her. They couldn't. The doors opened on their own. She stepped through, into the sunlight, into history. And far above, the black ships began to descend. The air above Vraxion's upper domes pulsed with distant thunder, though no weather system was to blame. The clouds were black ships now, silent, vast, waiting just beyond the visual spectrum until they chose not to be. One by one, they decloaked. Not in formation. Not as a fleet. They appeared like omens, like the moment before a sentence finishes with a blade. Kala stood atop the tribunal steps, wind pulling at her braid, dress torn from the knee down and stained with the dust of too many steps. Around her, soldiers bristled. But none moved. Because none of them knew who gave the orders anymore. A crowd had gathered outside the Capitol gates. Civilians, smugglers, traitors, prisoners who had climbed from the arena's corpse. Word had spread fast. Not of revolution. Not even of war. Of her. "She's the one who fought Karthtal. She's the one who cracked the broadcast." She smiled when she did it. She scanned the crowd slowly. Not with arrogance. With a kind of stillness, like she was memorizing their faces, in case this was her last moment. Behind her, a Dominion officer approached, breathing heavy from a run. "You need to come inside. They're activating surface cannons. They think the Terran fleet is preparing to fire." She didn't look at him. "They won't fire," the officer hissed. "And how do you know that?" She turned, finally, her gaze calm. "Because they don't need to." Up in orbit, on the bridge of the lead Terran vessel, the Wakeful, Commander Thorne leaned over the comm console, one hand wrapped around a ceramic mug that read, "Meet Violence with Scheduling." His officers stood at silent attention, watching the planetary readout stabilize. "Sir," one of them said, "the message reached the far sectors. We've confirmed riots on 17 major hubs. Dozens of planetary leaders are requesting negotiations." "Any sign of countermaneuvers?" "None yet. They're still in shock." He smiled faintly. "Good. Shock is useful. It lets you walk through doors they didn't know were unlocked." From below, a transmission request blinked. Kala's ID. "Put her through." Her face appeared on screen, a whisper framed in static. "They're going to retaliate." Thorne nodded. "That's what scared empires do. They don't know how to lose. But they know how to panic. Do they know we've already won?" Her voice softened. "Not yet." He smiled and tapped the mug. "Then keep smiling." Transmission cut. On the surface, Vraxion's defense towers began rotating, targeting the black ships in orbit. But the weapons didn't fire. Because the ships didn't threaten. They didn't broadcast warnings. They simply hovered there, patient. Like they were waiting for the empires to admit something. Kala walked alone through the palace corridor, her bare footsteps echoing off polished stone. Guards flinched as she passed. Not one tried to stop her. The doors to the central war chamber swung open with a reluctant hiss. Inside, 12 galactic leaders, half of them blinking through exhaustion and half through disbelief. The Avix Admiral was the first to speak. "You cannot stand there and expect us to surrender to a myth." "I'm not a myth," she said. "I'm a mirror." "We are armed," snapped a Zentari Prime. "We have fleets, systems, codes you can't crack." "You already gave me everything I needed," she replied, "when you put me in that arena." The Mondu ambassador tilted his head. It was deliberate. Kala looked to him. "Every smile, every pause, every word I whispered. The telemetry carried it to your satellites. Your satellites carried it to your ships. And your ships are all connected. You built an empire on convenience. And I gave it a ghost." The Zentari bared his fangs. "You're bluffing. If you could kill us all, you would have done it already." "I don't want to kill you," she said, voice low. "I want you to understand. Fear fades. Understanding doesn't. But what do you want? I want you to know what it feels like. To watch someone smile at you, knowing they could end you with a breath. To feel the pressure of survival while being underestimated." A pause. "And I want to make sure the next child in your prison colony doesn't have to smile while bleeding." The Avix slammed a talon on the table. "That's sentiment." She stepped closer. "No. That's policy." Above the planet, the black ships moved again. Not forward, but gently. Thousands of them, descending with precision, not one touching a city, not one striking a target. Instead, they opened. What came from them wasn't fire. It was truth. Broadcasts in every language. Footage. Testimonies. Maps of resource theft. Data on war crimes hidden by the Dominion and its allies. Videos of conquered peoples forced into exile. The things buried too deep to be seen. Now illuminated, played across skies, rooftops, terminals. Entire populations began to turn inward, and then outward. In the chamber, silence fell once more. The Avix Admiral whispered, "You've turned our people against us." "No," Kala said. "You did that." "But what are you then?" asked the Zentari. "Rebels? A secret government. We're what's left. Of a species you thought you erased. Of a memory you hoped would fade. We're the story you tried to skip." He looked down. A sudden bang echoed behind them. A guard burst in. "It's the Arthok. They've turned their fleet. They're standing down." "What?" "They're aligning with the humans. Broadcasting a ceasefire. Their warriors are calling it debt honor." The room erupted in shouting, but Kala stayed still. Because she knew what would happen next. As the shouting turned to frantic debate, alarms blared. The black ships had fully landed. From their sides, humans emerged. Not in armor. Not in formation. In teams. Medics. Engineers. Historians. They walked into war-torn cities not to conquer, but to record. To restore. To remind the galaxy of what was lost when it silenced Earth. At the center of it all, Kala stood, the eye of the returning storm. She closed her eyes briefly. Not for meditation. For memory. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to recall the moment it all began. The fall of Terra. The broadcast. The way she smiled into the camera and told the galaxy it was okay to forget them. Because they wouldn't forget. Now they were back. The Dominion began to fracture within days. Old allies defected. Forgotten colonies rose. The war that had ended humanity's reign had not made the galaxy safer. Only quieter. Now the silence was broken. In a final broadcast to the galaxy, Kala stood in the center of the same arena where she'd once faced down Karthtal. Her voice echoed across systems. "To those who cheered when we fell, thank you. You taught us the value of silence. To those who stood by, thank you. You taught us patience. To those who fear us now, good. But let that fear be tempered by something else. She paused. Curiosity. Behind her, the banners of the old Terran assembly were raised, not as declarations of dominance, but as a warning. Never mistake quiet for weakness. Never mistake smiles for surrender. And then she said the last line, the line that would become legend. Smile when you kill them, because that's when they forget to look for the knife. The feed ended, and the stars changed.